Good morning once again, participants. Please remain seated. We shall now commence with the panel discussion. We have with us the moderator Sadaf Hashmi. We also have the panelists Mr. Manan Bhatt, Commander Varun Gupta, Vikas Gorpare, and our chief guest will be joining the panel, that would be the Ramajan. I now request our principal to felicitate the moderator. Felicitate panelist Mr. Manan Bhatt. Mr. Vikas Gorpare. Commander Varun Gupta. Let's introduce to you the moderators of today's panel discussions, Dr. Sadaf Hashmi. Dr. Sadaf Hashmi is an accomplished associate professor in finance with over 16 years of experience in academia and corporate training. She holds a doctorate in finance and in the area of banking. She is a trainer in BFSI with National Stock Exchange's Learning and Development Division. She's been a part of corporate projects with esteemed corporates such as Tata AIA Life Insurance, HDFC Mutual Funds, UTI Mutual Funds, amongst others. She has contributed to journals and reviewed reference books for esteemed universities such as NMIMS, Symbiosis, and publication houses such as Tata McGraw-Hill. She has also designed curriculum for edtech companies catering to postgraduate students in UK on Scottish Qualifications Authority guidelines for the subject of global financial market. She also mentors budding entrepreneurs at Founder Institute to guide them on fundraising and valuations. I now request Dr. Hashmi to complete the program. Good morning and warm welcome to all the audience members as well as our panelists. In fact, I would say the educators and the change makers of today and tomorrow. Because today what we are going to talk about is not a job skill or not a skill that every entrepreneur would require, but eventually this is going to be a life skill for all of us. Also, the core of this panel discussion, looking into the expertise of our panelists, is going to drive or revolve around a very key area that how technology and finance will be driving ESG in India as well as at the global level. So without further delay, I will first introduce the panelists, and I'm definitely very privileged to share their profile with all of you. We'll start with Dr. Commander Varun Gupta. He has over 2 decades of experience on the naval frontier, and it's a privilege to have you serve with us. And he has been a leader in terms of the ICT, telecommunications, security warfare, satellite communication. Currently, he's also an associate director of cybersecurity and risk consulting at PwC. He's extremely passionate about technology, management, governance, leadership, and he's striving to advance in these fields. Thank you so much, sir. I think we've had a wonderful morning session with Sridhar sir, but I will still take the opportunity to introduce him once again. He was the founder of Darsha Advisors, and I think one thing which really caught my eye in his profile is the kind of alternative investment funds he's been working on. I will definitely in the area of green finance ask sir to throw more light on that, how that is changing in India. So Sir is the founder of Darsha Advisors, which is a consulting firm in the areas of corporate strategy, M&A, private equity, and definitely ESG. He has also been the advisor and CIO for the India Nivesh Renaissance Fund for listed and unlisted companies. He's a specialist with over 35 years of experience in management strategy, and he has led many companies across Asia and Africa for general and financial management. Thank you for placing us. Next, we have Mr. Manan Bhatt, who is a VP from Yes Bank, and he has had over 15 years of experience in strategy and transformation. That's his core area of work. Having worked in various capacities in different financial institutions, with the focus on transformation, digitization, and digitalization. He's leading development for framework of sustainability and particularly in sustainable finance to bring a change towards financing and achieving net zero targets. I have the privilege to introduce Mr. Vikas Gorpare, co-founder of Lenpack Consultancy, with over 35 years of experience in plant design in oil and gas in the GCC, exposure to EIA, hands-on project process optimization, and the decarbonization. FEA, which is an analytical tool, which I would ask Sir to throw more light during the discussion, for polluting equipment, how it can be used to kind of capture pollution, etc. And last 10 years, he's been working in the area of IoT in steel plants, predictive maintenance reporting in steel plants under ESG. So I think that's a very, very different and unique area. So we will start first with our discussion focusing on the integration of SDGs. So everyone is very much aware about the United Nations, which is coined with the Sustainable Development Goals. And currently these 17 goals are being used by industries, being used by even academia, and they're being integrated into different kinds of business principles and even academic principles. This is going to be our first round of discussion. So we will start with Manan sir. And I will throw the question to each of the panelists that how industries can better understand SDGs and integrate them into their core business strategies.
Hi, good morning. I think thank you for having me here. SDGs are playing a very important role, but let me start with the financing side per se. So if you look at today, almost 30 trillion assets are already under ESG. And it is expected to reach around 40 trillion by 2030. Now, even Government of India has taken a target to achieve 400 gigawatt by 2030 and net zero by 2070. It's not easy to achieve this particular target because it requires a lot of effort, including financing, including implementation, which is huge task, I would say. When we look at the SDG, the Government of India's target is towards this achieving SDGs particularly. So when as a financing side, when we were actually working towards this particular part, there's an organization called International Chamber of Commerce. They actually published a report suggesting that financing for green side is part one, but there is another important side of sustainability is social and the governance side. Let's say if certain organization is focusing only on the green part, the green projects, but their governance is not right, they may not be able to achieve what they wanted to do it. Or if they are not focusing on the social side, they may not be able to achieve even with the green projects that they are undertaking. So it's important that we need to consider when we say sustainability, we focus entirely on ESG. They did a lot of iterations and they came up with one particular framework that a lot of finance institutions adopted it. Now they, from last 3.5 years, so we are the only finance institution from India who is supporting them. They are developing a framework for trade finance. When I say trade finance is international trade. So if you consider carbon emission across the world, 30% of the carbon emission happens in trade. So when somebody is actually developing goods here, then transferring that goods from one place to another place and transporting it to the end beneficiary, it actually involves 30% carbon emission across the world. Sometimes it's very important that you also finance this trade part in order to reduce the cost and the carbon emission happening at each level. And when I say each level means the supplier, a buyer, even the last proceeds that you use, and particularly the transportation side. So everywhere we are currently developing that framework. So ICC, they work very extensively. Currently, third iteration is going on, where we are also partnering with our corporate clients. So what we basically do is now this, and one of the very important part of this sustainability framework that we are developing is, this will be applicable for all sectors. So the iteration was started with the most polluting sector, if you call it, a textile, not with any green sector. In iteration two, we moved for auto components, textile, auto components, and agriculture. Agriculture, though it looks green, but it's very polluting sector per se, if you look at it. Similarly, in India, SEBI has come up with a lot of guidelines nowadays, particularly the disclosures that now 3,000 top listed companies will have to make. Those disclosures are not about themselves, but disclosures about the supply line as well. From whom they are basically procuring, what they are doing. So this currently in India, these disclosures are nothing but just a disclosures. It doesn't keep any penalty on you, doesn't lead anywhere. Like EU, that they already have the disclosures in place, and they have to adhere to certain regulations that EU Parliament has created in 2020. This is ratified by all countries in 2024. Latest in May 2024. So even their suppliers across the world will have to adhere to that particular regulation. Then only they will be able to sell the product at the cost that they are incurring. Otherwise, there will be huge penalty on it. So if you look at SDGs from a financing angle, they are most focusing on SDG principle 6, 4, 5, and 8 for social side, and principle 6, 7, and 13 from the green side. Other than this, other principles which SDGs have already listed, other remaining 11 principles, particularly financing side does not have much focus on it. But I would say, if we really want to bring that change in the sustainability with sustainability focus, I believe remaining 11 SDG goals needs to be adhered to. And maybe not today, but tomorrow, when we are creating our own framework for the financing side, probably all this remaining 11 SDG goals will also be captured into it, because these particular goals are focusing not only on the social or the green side, but they're focusing on the societal side. Because society is basically paying the price for not adhering to or not following certain rules from the industry. That way, I believe the goals that were created by or the arrived by the WTO are in the right direction. And probably we as a country are also in the right direction to achieve that particular goal before time.
Thank you. Thank you for having me here. And sustainable development goals. While Manan told you mostly about the financial side, I am going to keep it more on a generic side. It is using badly, no problem. So we are going to, while I'm inclined to speak only about the IT, because I work in the IT and cybersecurity field right now, but I have had a lot of work done in the Indian Navy. And I could tell you that LGGs, which have been developed, and from a ticket fly United Nations, I think they came way back in 2015. They are quite holistic. And they do not talk about the ones, they are not industry centric, so they are not a specific process centric, but they are very holistic goals which talk about overall improvement in the way we live, the way we deliver, the way we work, the way we study. It concentrates on water, it concentrates on hunger, on sanitization, on industrial development, on social equality and these sort of things. Life on land, life in water. So those kind of goals. From the IT and digital side of it, it is there everywhere. From a it would be difficult to point out where IT cannot help in attaining these goals. It is almost everywhere that IT is being leveraged, whether it is your mobile phone or whether it is top apps or whether it is AI, ML, robotics. Digital revolution in the last 5-10 years has really helped in enabling the organizations to achieve those ESG reporting standards. I was discussing before the panel discussion with one of the panelists. Then we were saying that it is very difficult for organizations to actually read and collect the data, which is the most important thing. How do you collect the data, and then what do you do with that data? So in cyber security, like right now we are doing consulting. There are a lot of we do a lot of consulting for renewable sector also. So wherever there is energy, which is being used, I just give you one example. Like suppose you go to a wind mill where they are trying to generate electricity out of the wind. So digitalization is there, cyber security is there because you want to protect the infrastructure. It is very easy to penetrate that infrastructure and do a harm by a malicious actor. Similarly, whether it is a food program, whether it is education, I think the IT industry could actually intervene and help in anything and everything, whatever is being done. From a company's perspective, they obviously need to align to what goals in as SDGs they would like to adhere to and how will they go and approach it. But from the domain wise or from the IT wise, I think anything and everything, sanitization, for example, you take sanitization. So we have industrial control systems, SCADA systems, which are there, in which if sanitization or water supply is there, so everything is controlled by IT systems now. So it is nothing which is going to happen with the valves or hydraulic systems or pneumatic. So with everything being controlled by digital signals, it is very important that those systems are secure, they are kept safe, and also at the same time exploited to the best possible level to gather data, utilize that data, optimize that data, clean that data, utilize that data for betterment. So I could give up to a number of examples wherein gathering the correct data, analyzing it, and acting upon it could make all the difference in ESG reporting. And I think we are in an exciting world because more and more organizations now are waking up to the fact that it is not something which is being bound onto them. It is not something which is a regulatory compliance. You have to do this ESG compliance. It is not a guideline by a regulator. It is more to do with customer centricity, investor centricity, as Sridhar was mentioning. Investors are not interested in coming to a company which is not looking at the environmental side of it or the sustainability side of it. If you talk about students, the Gen Z or Gen Alpha, which is going to come up now, they are not interested in a company. They say on the face that our company is not having these practices, and they are not interested in going to a company and seeking an employment. They are happy to wait out, but they do not want to go and be associated with a company which is not known for the right reasons in the society. So it is for the customers, it is for your own employees, it is for the earth, it is for the environment, it is for your children. It is, and eventually it is for the money for which a company is there. But I think SDGs weave a very good story around all these things, and I could say that IT and digitization is there to help this story go forward and take the ESG initiative forward. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm talking is, I complete this on the same question. As data, the right data, correct data and availability and what to do with the data. We had a small example to give the secretary members that how things can be very simple with the help of technology. There is Tamil Nadu state, they have a dairy board or something, which Tamil Nadu is a big state, a lot of other cities and all that. Milk collection is one of their day-to-day business, milk collection. They collect the milk for that, they have collection centers, and each center, suppose, probably can talk. Maybe there are hundreds of centers. The problem was that IT, they have IT in the place. There is like, one center is there, and maybe in a day, 500 farmers are coming, and they are emptying their, each farmer is given tag number, 1, 2, 3, 4, whatever it is, and whatever quantity they are giving, everything is followed, the Excel sheet is made according to their payments, etc. Will be happening. So IT is there, data is there. But you can imagine this volume is so big when we are talking of country like India or state like Tamil Nadu. These centers are more than 1,000. Spread across the whole state. There is the electricity or there is no electricity. There is a data or not data. The centers are there. So many years back we were talking with them for some water treatment plant and boards have this. So we asked them, all this data is there, you have to do analytics, you have to do something intellectual information from that which you can forecast, plan your 5-year, 2-year, whatever. Agriculture, health, and everything is related to the health. So we did a system called proof of concept. We asked them to give 50 centers. They have already the milk analyzer. Each of these centers, they have milk analyzer, which is nothing but a small printer kind of machine where you have to put one sample of the milk and it gives a one small screen like the specifications of the drop which they give. So it is, they rate the vendor accordingly, and they give this specification, etc. So they have a milk analyzer, they have a computer. The rest is stopped. They may be, passing on these student office, which are not about it, but nothing is happening. So we said we have to connect all these things and you get the intelligent data. So we did for 50. 50 was difficult, so because some centers have Wi-Fi or Ethernet or anything. So we put pen drive. And then we pen drive sent to some other center where we can download the data. Okay. And with that, of course, we did all the things from the point of view of the principles of IoT to collect the data, screen the data, convert into certain things, and we give them specific analytics of that. So the real, this is SDG, when you said, SDG are 17, below the water, because as he said, it's not only financial, but the SDGs are, UN SDGs are talking about the whole cycle of humanity, like what we say, Panchamahabhuta, for air, water, land, everything. So milk is one of the very common commodity, like drinking water, and UN is asking for that. Of course, UN is a very big thing. From India centric, for our kind of thing, it's technology which can help to revolutionize such kind of thing. The milk collection was there, everything is done. But these KPIs are now empowering that whole board, that how to rate their vendors and how to forecast what happens in January month, what happens in the May month, what happens in the December month. And then they will know everything and all this. Okay.
Thank you, sir. Now, Sridhar, sir.
How many of us are fully aware of the SDGs? Not many of us. Let me be very frank, I don't. I don't get intimidated by this norm. You know why? When I was moved to South Africa in 1997, I had the opportunity to meet Mr. President Mandela. And apartheid was in South Africa. You know what is apartheid? Discrimination. So he said, Sridhar, you start your company with a rainbow board. At the time, there was no SDGs, no inclusion, diversity, all of that. He said rainbow code, which means all colors, whites, colored, Indians, and Africans. So recently I did a transaction with equity raise for a medical app company. This gentleman created devices for infants in the ICU, in the neonatal units. And he connected through the digital platform to this command center where doctors are monitoring after the discharge of the babies, what is their pulse and all of that. Then he has a tech platform that when the vaccination has to come, the doctors will come. So he built a beautiful tech platform with medical grade devices. All of us wear smart watches, but they are not medical grade. Let's be very clear about it. When he came to me, Sridhar, I want to raise 10 crores and all that. I know the investor. I've been an investor. So I said, you know what you're doing? There are 3 SDGs you're satisfying this. And put one slide in that, investors will love it. I said, you are helping the society. So every business, and I sat on 3 or 4 companies' boards. Many of the board of directors have no clue about this SDG, ESG, nothing. I had to educate them in very front. And we call a HR. And Mandela said, you have to do this. I never used the word HR. First time I coined the word in South Africa called Human Asset Development Department, HAD. The day you use the word resources, it is bound to be exploited. The day you treat this as an asset, you will value it. Period. And when I had to put my company in bankruptcy in 2001 because of Indonesian crisis, they carried guns to the factories. I had 1,200 workers there. They could have shot me. But nothing happened. The people just walked out peacefully and they all got protected with the jobs because somebody took over. So the value system is human values, all of that which we call in SDG, so and so number, so and so number. But if you have the right intention, you will start doing the right thing. And all these SDG will fall in numbers. All you have to project it in the presentation slide. So when you are looking at any business, and when I sat on one company, auto ancillary company, the promoter said, Sridhar, my management team of 60, 80 people, they have been with me for 18, 20 years. You know what? In BRSR report, what is attrition you're writing? And bloody this man does not have an attrition. One of the best company to work for, right? And it was 235 crore when I invested in 2020, 21. And we turned around that company this year with 650 crores with 18 crore backlog. How did that happen? Because of the systems and the people who work for them, right?
Our first round of discussion, technology is, I think, a very integral part to kind of bring SDGs into company processes. And I think from the discussion, IoT was very, I think one of the technologies which is very important and significant in this integration. Also, I had a discussion recently with Mr. Kusnoor. He is the founder of Aquacraft, and I would really like to mention this here because this company and this entrepreneurial venture of his is working on kind of looking at the ground table water levels. And they're using blockchain to do that. And now they're also partnering with a lot of organizations and companies in India. So I think in the coming times, blockchain and IoT is really going to help companies to integrate SDGs into their processes. Now, since we're talking about this integration, let's move on to also another important area of discussion is the profitability and progress. For organizations, when we talk about customer and investor centricity, progress and profitability are equally important. And Manan sir, being in a bank, I know this, the quarterly reportings in terms of the profitability and managing SDGs, how challenging is it?
So, particularly when you talk about the profitability part and the financing side, when a financier is basically investing somewhere, what is important for them? First, to identify things, assess it properly, invest into that particular stuff, and then monitor it. Now, if we consider this the same cycle for ESG side, and we considering profitability or identifying the profitability for certain projects, monitoring is very difficult. Very difficult, I would say, because as a financier, we don't understand this subject at all. Though it is very important for us, even the regulators are behind us suggesting that you need to create certain frameworks in order to provide financing to ESG sectors. It is important to understand from our point of view is that unless and until you involve or bring in certain technology into it, the monitoring of any project would be very difficult. So just now, last year itself, we conducted a pilot with one of the company at IFSC. So IFSC is the only international financial services center in India. It gets it. They, from the regulatory perspective only, they have already a norm that all banks will have to adhere to at least 5% of their financing to ESG sector. And when they do not say it's ESG sectors, they say it's towards sustainability. So this particular company, they came to us, they say that we have created a platform. In that particular platform, what we have done is you raise certain funds. Anybody can do it. So they did this pilot with 4 banks, where one of the this bank has basically raised funds from the market. We need to deploy these funds only into the ESG sector. That is already disclosed on the platform. So the company would go and every time include or develop certain technological aspects, including sensors in certain cases, including softwares in some areas. And every time they will provide information to the remaining investors who have invested into the fundraising that I have done, or the company we have, the Yes Bank has done. And then for almost 6 months, they provided their information to this particular platform. So it was transparent, it was open to all investors, even the fundraiser, as a fundraiser we were. And at the end of 6 months, we returned the money back to the original investors. When we completed this entire exercise, what we have understood is that the monitoring for the investment that we have made, the successful part 1. Part 2 is it is actually helping the amount that has been invested into that particular segment in a big way, because though it was for 6 months only, it was a working capital that we have provided to them, very short-term capital we have provided. But it has actually helped a certain green sector project to get completed. So they have also achieved their own targets in that particular segment as well. So when you look at from a financing side, the profitability you can achieve when you integrate technology with it. This is another example that I would like to give. And this was particular to the government of India, that what they have done. Since 2015, they are basically developing some frameworks, financing frameworks, if you look at it. Because they came up with Jan Trinity, and then based on the Jan Trinity, they started developing different frameworks. So UPI is very successful on that. Currently, what is going on is ASHA, particularly unified health interface that they are developing. One particular aspect that government has actually came up with the idea was for the logistics sector. Logistics is a sector in India is very vast and very, very fragmented. Very fragmented. Now, if you look at, there are basically 4 ways you can travel or you can send your product, like rail, road, water, and air. We have 4 different ministries. 4 different ministries. All those ministries have different systems to track the data, create the data. So government of India, with their Ministry of Industry and Commerce, have developed a framework called ULIP, Unified Logistics Interface Platform. It's just a framework. So they don't store anything. But this particular framework connects to all the systems which are developed by different ministries. And I tell you from last 3 years, 2021 to 2024, this is, so the data is not live currently, but just an estimation that the logistics cost that we were incurring was somewhere in the range of 13 to 18%. It has come down by almost 0.75 to 1% right now in last 3 years. The reason is very simple. With the data that is available right now, we are able to understand and we are able to augment the entire supply. How this is helping finance or the profitability of our finances that we do. So basically, the only bank is associated with Tulip since 2021. In fact, before that, they were developing this. So we have created certain use cases with that. Whenever somebody is coming to us for financing, and into different categories, we also look at what type of business they are doing in. If they are basically transporting something from one place to another place, we come to know, we understand that how much time it will take to this entire system. So in a way, we are able to understand and predict that by what time we get our funds back. And depending on that, depending on the entire situation, we are arriving to our cost of capital. And at the same time, we are, giving the interest rate or advising interest rate to our customers. This is actually helping the companies like the banks like us to predict and understand that how much money will make out. So the profitability will include the technology into your entire day-to-day aspect, day-to-day operations. So you will be able to not only help the financiers or the companies to raise funds easily, but as a bank, the financier as well will also understand that how much money and how fast we can make it. Very important.
I think the integration with the cost of capital is the most strategic thing out here.
So not the cost of capital, unless and until you don't monitor when you deploy your funds, you won't be able to achieve that profitability. So monitoring is the important part here in this entire cycle.
Srinivasa and then Vikas and answer for this question. So sir, would like to add more.
Yeah, I think, Manan, phenomenal work your bank is doing. I'm aware of it. I think you changed the business model completely, which I can see from old Yes Bank to now Yes Bank. Now, monitoring. Now, 2 years back, I wrote to the RBI. When they published a report, 17 of their nationalized bank boards did not know what is ESG. You're aware of it? They published a report, 17 of their nationalized bank boards did not know what is ESG. And how are they going to talk about lending to the companies and monitoring? So first, that was the biggest problem. Then in India, we are talking about the listed companies. We have 2 lakh unlisted companies, private companies. Who is monitoring them? And their borrowing is not less than 200 to 300 crores per company. So I said, all you have to do is train your personnel at your bank with a simple format. Every 6 months, understand the business model. As Manan says, monitoring, all you need to, in India, the moment you issue a format, people will fulfill it up. Yes, that's a culture. The moment you issue a format, everybody will, like an executive assistant from the chairman's office will come, please submit every weekend. RBI does the same thing with all the banks. Every Friday evening, you have to disclose and to issue a simple format every 6 months that company, if that company is a chemical company, what was the discharge? Few parameters, I will tell you, small things which will lead to profitability, and the bank will be confident when I lend to this guy, there is something happening in this company towards ESG. And slowly, and it's like a DP format, every company borrows working capital, they certify every month, this is my inventory, this is my debtors, right, as per GST. Now, similarly, you take a signature from the KMP, Key Management Personnel, CFO and the CEO, that I have reduced this. And tomorrow, when you actually do an audit and you get a BRSR report rated and it is different, you can go back and say, I lent you 500 crores to you and you have given me wrong report, you can penalize. So you can interconnect how performance with your lending can happen with ESG without complicating. All you need to do is simple understand your business model. If it is electricity is a major consumption for a textile company or an automotive ancillary company, what are you going to do for the electricity? Are you going to get a solar project? Are you going to get what are you going to do that emission? 2 parameters for every company you do it, 2 lakh companies across India, you will see something or other will happen. Right? This is what I would say, connect your finance to your metrics. With simple metrics. don't complicate, don't confuse him with, no promoter wants to understand SDG and all of that. You tell him, my dear, this is your business, this is your consumption, water, this is your electricity, I want you to reduce. In 500 crore, if I'm lending you, or 10 crore I'm lending you, I will give you 1 crore for technological absorption. Today, RBI has not come out with such guideline. They are talking about trade finance, logistic finance, supply chain, all of that. But basically, how do I convert my boiler, coal-fired boiler into biodiesel? I need 3 crores. Bank is not ready to give it to me. This is what I wish Nirmala comes up and says, you are giving a collateral less loan. Bring a collateral less loan for this. Am I right?
I think continuing the same point, we had a discussion with Vikas earlier today that there is green steel which is going to be integrated in most of the steel companies. So I'll ask sir to throw light on how moving from the existing steel framework to green steel will impact the profitability and also the cost, because I think all companies will not be as, abundant in capital as a Tata Steel would be.
Big subject. Green steel is a very new subject in India. Only large companies are doing. There are two aspects. One is the steel producer, one is the steel consumer. When we were talking, the context was different. Like any new construction is happening, they try to, attract investors and of these agencies by saying that our, there is a rating, construction rating and building rating, green building, again, there are norms, etc. India itself have our own norms, outside countries also have their norms, when there are ratings. In that rating, it is compulsory for you to use the green steel. Now, green steel is not, green steel is very simple for ordinary non-technical people. The steel which is using a lot of component of old steel, practically. And the energy which they are using should be alternative energy to some. Then there are of course a lot of additives, etc. So that is the green steel. Now in a country like India, Jindal or Tata, they are already, having certain percentage of manufacture of green steel. So that is the manufacturing segment. Now consuming segment, it is up to their project and their future, what they want to portray, what they want to do, attract financing and ESG compliance, etc. They will go for the green steel. It is not compulsory. Like sort of, we work actually. I mean, based in Dubai for many years. We have been working there. Just for your information, we have executed more than 120 manufacturing projects inside Jebel Ali Free Zone India since 95, year 95. For manufacturing, including textile, process, chemical, whatever. If all this construction of the plant, municipality, have a mandate, whatever steel you use is a coated steel, which is epoxy coated. In India, we started this mandate very recently, maybe last 10 years or so, again for only certain projects like Luna complex, a huge project where they will go for that because they have certain ratings for that, etc. Not the salary projects they are doing this. So in India, the situation is different. But coming back to the green steel, so green steel manufacturing and consuming, it's a whole subject by itself. But it will happen slowly. Because steel, if you see, our published information about the carbon footprint and India's disclosures and India's achievement, actually we are proud India, on global, we have been reading everything, COP20, COP various destinations, COP having, COP conference, COP conference. And then there is a lot of debate, that all large economies, they have been polluting and they are now not committing the funds for this further pollution. But India has already achieved a lot of milestones, which India have globally committed. That's a very big achievement by a country like India. So this green steel and such kind of thing will happen more. But it's a big subject.
So since we've been talking about profitability and we've talked about progress, from the consulting side, can you tell us that what are the challenges companies face in balancing all these factors?
No, There was a recent survey, I was going through, for, board of directors and CEOs, and I think most of the companies now, about 50 to 60% of the companies, the senior leadership is cognizant of the fact that, environmental solutions and governance are some of the key aspects they want to be associated with. They want to be associated with sustainability. They want to be seen outside in the world that the company is doing something in this domain. They don't want to just talk about profitability. And they have somehow realized over the time that when they do this, it is not from a compliance perspective, or there is no mandate per se to do this. And while there is BRSR reporting and various other things, there are ways to go around it, and it is just the way you report it. But they have realized the intrinsic value of following some of these practices. What Mr. Friedman was mentioning was how to enforce it by, making it fill a form. But I think intrinsically also in the industry that thought in manufacturing has come that we need to be ESG compliant, whether it is diversity in my workforce, whether it is getting the automation on the shop floor, because not only it will bring me profit, it will also keep my person who's on the shop floor safe. More automated, will get his job done more easily. He to concentrate on better things, important things. At the same time, ensuring that he's safe, whether I'm able to do predictive maintenance and not preventive maintenance. Can I predict what is going to happen? Do I have the data and the numbers to say that my machine has run so much and this requires the maintenance at that much time? Am I collecting data enough on these aspects? So I think there is a big inclination in the industry, in the manufacturing industry, to adopt these practices. They are adopting, and from the digital perspective, it all comes and aligns with the perspective which a company is having. Because if you introduce automation, you introduce sensors in your key processes in your industry. Suppose we have a textile company which was everything was driven manually. There were 100 people doing it. When the company installs a new machine and which has all the sensors which collect the data, it doesn't mean that the 100 people are going to get reduced to 50. The company could always expand into 2 plants or 3 plants, and they are doing it. We are seeing that they are doing it by introducing new technology which is safer for the person, which is the raw material which is being sourced through the supply chain is safer, easier, eco-friendly. The supply chain itself is being insisted that the suppliers from which I am sourcing this material, is it eco-friendly? Is it complying with whatever is being thought of in the society? It is not. It should comply to what my thought process is on how suppose I produce a shirt. So for producing the shirt, am I sourcing the right material which has come from the right way and the supply chain is correct or not? Now, coming to the factory, I've already told that, I made a factory and I try to automate as much as possible. So all these things are adding up to my profitability at end of the day, because I'm attracting investors like Green Steel. It is attracting investors because you tell them that I'm giving you the same product. This steel was having this much transaction. I'm giving you 5 times more. But with the additional layer of having a environmental thing attached to it, and everybody will be happy saying that I'm able to give you the same thing at the same price, but at higher tensile strength, and which is eco-friendly. Then I think anybody in today's world, when we keep on listening and talking about environment and climate and other things, we will be happy to invest and go to that company rather than go to a company which says no, I don't bother about all these things. It doesn't matter. I'm able to give you the same thing for the same cost. So I won't mind paying 5% or 10% extra, but I would like to go there and go to a sustainable process. And as I mentioned earlier, it is not only with the senior leadership in the company, it is also very much we can see it with the workforce. The workforce is happy. The workforce is now more educated. They want to work on automated systems. They want to have a safe working environment, and all this is possible when this ESG strategy, irrespective of the fact that you are integrating them from the point of reporting or not, but it is intrinsically value added services for you. And last thing which I want to mention is a company has to, once they align to a goal of they want to have this much ESG compliance, they have to have KPIs, key performance indicators, and that is what gets sold. Like when you tell that, I reduced company travel by cars by 50%, I saved 1.5 CR in last financial year. Or we sourced, instead of coal, I have sourced you electricity or this, and I have saved this much money. I'll give you one more example in IT industry. We talk about cloud computing because instead of everybody buying the hardware now and going into, so it is everybody is being promoted, you shift over to the cloud of legacy systems, legacy companies, everybody is being shifted to the cloud so that they could benefit from the automation, benefit from the security which is available at very limited cost and almost at the same cost. So cloud computing works on data centers. Data centers consume a lot of electricity, and electricity primarily for air conditioning. So one simple example I read somewhere, very many companies, the AWS and Microsoft of the world are investing in technologies wherein the data centers could be located in locations which are in the cold geographies. So it makes so much sense because you are only emitting heat and you want to that heat to dissipate as fast as possible. Some years back, Microsoft was investing in some data center which was beneath the level of the sea. They had some technology for that, and similarly, AWS and various other companies have data centers in those cold climate geographies because it all makes sense and it adds up to you. So he's not going to do it just for environment. He's not only looking after the climate, he's looking after the value which he's bringing, not only to the society, but to the money which is generating, the profit which he is creating for himself by doing it. Because at the end of the day, he's benefiting and he's able to pass on the benefit not only to the consumer but also to environment as a whole. And I think it's a win-win situation for everyone.
That's something. API substitution. A very simple example. Distillery, Parley Group. Distillery has done very innovative KPI, public information, public domain. It's a water. And there was another water industry or manufacturers, they were always claiming that distillery is doing lot of water and they are actually using just treated water, etc., etc. Because it's a pan India level distribution and manufacturing they have. They have plants in Himachal Pradesh to Maharashtra. So in Himachal Pradesh, they don't have that water and they are just doing some various type of water treatment and washing and branding. So their opponent industry was tarnishing their image. Management decided to capitalize on that and say that how we can. So they have started internally a program which they say that we will generate the water credit as there are carbon credits in the industry. Let us have water credits. And they made audits, adopted technology, adopted all kind of possible things. And they had all the data for how they are saving the water, how they are saving other adulterated water. Like there are borewells. If you go to the small village, just not even village, the small cities, sit down, and ask them distillery, they don't give distillery. There are locally made brands. Now these locally made brands are having just a small filters and then they are just putting and getting and selling. In local shops, you will not get anything, but only that. So they came out and found that look, we are saving those kind of waters and water related disease and disease, which we are converting into the water credit. Then there are international norms, they registered themselves, they took Indian government's permissions and so on. So there is a lot of published information in their balance sheet as well as to domain of the Ministry of Ministry. Now many other companies out there took lead to generate this water credit by doing proper standardizing of KPI, data and technology. So, to append your.
Everyone likes data. Everybody likes to have a figure or a ratio. So I think everybody's happy in the ratio. No, when you give them the figures, all of us.
Tangible.
Yeah, it is tangible. It could be seen, it could be felt, and you could calculate, yes, if Munafa hua hai, this profit is happening.
So water is a very big consumption and water is a scarcity. Like Nestle, the global Swiss companies have more resources, not the chocolate business, but for the water.
So, I think, this is a very notable point that India, the way progress is being made and the kind of emissions that go from our country, we do feel that looking at the AQI, that we are really a polluting, country, but that's not true. In fact, US and China have been the two major pollutants over the years, and the kind of progress that Indian companies are doing on this front is very noticeable. Whenever you get time, you should also look into the annual reports of ITC. So ITC has one of the companies which is into paper manufacturing, paperboard manufacturing. And in the past 3 years now, they are also managing recyclable materials, recyclable packaging, which is now being used in a lot of your e-commerce and quick commerce companies. So these areas, like as all the panelists mentioned, that if they intrinsically added or organically added into the organizations, the profitability and progress is bound to come. It is only for the companies to identify the problem areas or the opportunities. Another example at the global level also I would like to give, like Apple is one of the most valued companies and brands in the world. And the first product we have launched now, the Apple iWatch, which is the first carbon neutral product in terms of a iWatch or a smartwatch. So I think this is where we are heading, and definitely we should be proud of our Indian companies. If you look into the annual reports, each company will have a story of ESG to tell. But now we will go on to our next segment about the policy changes. Because very soon we have the budget coming up, and already Sridhar sir mentioned about this, that that our finance ministry also has to look at some of the incentives which companies can get. Because somewhere we may have to impose some of these practices to move to a greener and a cleaner and a better future, and can happen with a lot of these organizations. So I think first starting with Sridhar sir, what you feel in the budget, in the upcoming budget, what suggestions or recommendations you think can be integrated by the finance ministry, and what incentives can be given?
Though I work for large companies, I always help small and medium companies. Because they are the largest employment creators. Let's not forget that. And these people are very simple people. I have met more than 1,500 promoters in India. Many of them were small background, pledged their wife's gold and pledged their land, got into some business and built something. Now, I value their commitment. And of course, second generation, third generation are different animals because they have a different background altogether. Now, if you go and use these people because they are passionate, see, we always say Western concept is don't have emotional attachment to your business. But Asian system, not only Indian, go to China, go to Indonesia, they are wedded to their companies. They are very fond of their company, they will not let go. Even if there is a loss, they will try it. No, kuch na kuch hota hai. It will happen. I'm optimistic. Now, help these people to see the business model. And if you can motivate them to do certain things, one or two, because little drops of water suddenly it becomes a ocean. If 2 lakh companies, 300,000 companies, 500,000 companies do small efforts, and all it requires on a national scale, you are anyway putting so much GST, so much cess, and all of that. Give them back and say, after COVID, we gave collateral-free loans, working capital loans. Now it's a time, next 5 years, we are going to move towards financing SMEs with certain subsidized loans without collateral. See, collateral is a problem. You know why? Why so many startups are not able to grow? They are bootstrapped or they go for venture capital, and 90% of them they default and don't make it because they don't have the access to trade finance. First thing the banker says, where is the collateral? Right? And I know a company which I was helping in Tamil Nadu. This guy has got an order for 10 crores from the government of Tamil Nadu. But to buy those equipment, he needs 2 crores of working capital. And he says, "See, that my whole life I have put to build this business, to come to this, I don't have money." Right? And to go to a private equity guy or a venture capitalist, it's a 6 months process, and so many things happen. This is where lending should be, it should be more toward this aspect. Give them 5-10% for incentivizing them and monitor it. I always say banks fail in monitoring, that's why we had NPAs. Because the lenders are not trained to know the business model. You know, even today, I have this problem with RBI. Your working capital is decided for the whole year. Am I right, Manan? Certain cycles, you know why sugar companies in Maharashtra failed? Sugar companies have a 105 days crushing season, or in some areas it will be more. You get a working capital of say 200 crores. And after the cycle is over, that money should be technically returned back to the bank because you don't have a season. But they don't. When they don't, they invest into real estate. And when the crushing season comes, they don't have money to pay the farmers. And government comes in to pay the farmers from waiver account. So it's a cycle. So you need, bankers have to be taught to know the working capital cycle of every industry according to the highs and lows. Define them. After that, get the money back. Why should you allow them to keep the same limit? Right? Am I right, Karman? You can correct me if I'm wrong, right? This is where I would like the budget to be focused on giving specific, now that we have got all the regulations in place. Your supply chain, whether you're a listed company or not, if Mahindra will not endorse, give an order to a small vendor unless he's compliant. It is not just about environment, labor standards, health and safety, so many things. And you have to produce the data. Now he says, I have a data platform company for ESG. If I go there, I can give him at 5 lakhs of rupees. PwC, KPMG will come in, they will charge 40 lakhs. So he is looking for some data platform which can give him affordable, right? This is where automatically he produces the report to the bank and says, "Sir, we have done." So this is where I would like budget to go.
Same thing. Most of the time, today's nationalized banks and private banks, earlier we were having development banks. And our experience of those in the years, you will agree, the development banks were really grilling the promoters, whether it is a large corporate or a, mid-sized company. And we have seen, ICICI and IDBI had separate departments for monitoring. What we say, monitoring is not lacking and there is no progress. MPA is altogether a different subject. But in new banks and all this happening, they are mostly driven by their management strata and their targets. This target business is very difficult in the banks, and there are no within their banks or regional head offices or using the mechanism for training those people. They are even not knowing. If you will go to, if you go to Gujarat, they have huge amount of loans coming and they disbursing personally and hardly visited the plant. Visited the plant. Okay, he has put forward all the presentation and made reports approved by many, say, agencies, etc. So that's the monitoring. Earlier it was very stringent.
Let me just take you from this. Here, in 2022, HSBC has created a program. This was a supply chain program for suppliers from China and financing on that. And it's a large corporate, basically based out of Europe. Their suppliers are only in China. So they have created a framework called ESG framework. All their suppliers will have to adhere this particular framework. The moment they achieve that particular target, the financing to those suppliers would be 2% cheaper. You can understand 2% is a huge amount for those suppliers, right? Now, in this particular case, how HSBC has gone about it? They have their presence across the world. So they have the transit to China as well in that particular location, geography. They tried to monitor things, but they were not able to. So they went back to the corporate and said that, sir, now we have already get the program with you. There are two major issues. One is, a lot of your suppliers are saying that we have achieved our targets. Now, if we give 2% benefit to all suppliers, we'll make losses. So here you will have to help us, part one. Part two is, what they are suggesting us that everyone has achieved that particular target. How would we understand that? So you help us in that as well. So the corporate came back and they said, okay, we will help you in everything, because by achieving this particular target, we are not only othering our EU taxonomy, part one, but we will also be able to raise funds from other regions, other financial institutions who are ready to give us funds at a cheaper rate. So, okay, even if you are charging us X amount, take 1% extra on that. That is part one. Part two is, we will make sure that our suppliers from that particular region, that they achieve this SDG target or not, this ESG target or not. When the corporate went back to their suppliers and they understood, 80% of their suppliers have not achieved their targets at all. Okay, that particular program is still on. It's not 100% successful. The reason is very simple. In China, there are no ESG guidelines as such. When we talk about in India, how we are going about it. So we are actually currently looking USD target or the example. So EU has come up with EU taxonomy. It was passed in by EU Parliament in 2020. It took 4 years to ratified by all the EU members. Now 2024 it is ratified by all EU members, and now it is applicable. So all companies in EU region will have to adhere to the guidelines suggested in that. Not only the companies, but their suppliers, the suppliers, the entire supply chain will have to adhere wherever they are. Now government is doing here in India. So SEBI has 2 years ago they say that let's start with first 1,000 companies. So 1,000 companies will have to disclose their ESG compliance. They also have to rate themselves in the ESG. Then now from this year onwards, disclosures are mandatory for 3,000 companies, not only about themselves, but of the supply line as well. The only issue here in this entire the guidelines that is being provided by SEBI, when these companies are basically going for ESG rating, the rating is always skewed towards environment. They don't focus on S and G. So let's look at the companies like BPCL and HPCL. They are petroleum companies. They ought to have very bad environment side. They ought to have very bad green side. Okay. But if you look at the S and G, they are one of the best S&P companies. Still, the rating is very bad. When the government is basically, coming up with any specific module for it, they should also focus on S and G in a manner that whenever some corporates are, manufacturing anything or setting up a plant somewhere, they are not focusing on the plant, what the plant is going to do, or what employees are going to do, but the environment around it, the society around that particular plant, how that will get benefit out of it. So that is sometimes very important, particularly when, so I don't know what the finance minister is going to speak about ESG, but as we are approaching towards 2030 deadline, I believe there has to be some focus on financing towards carbon credits or carbon emissions, reduction of carbon emissions, part one. And there should be some focus on the financing, particularly on the sustainability front. I believe that these two areas you should focus, particularly why it is important. It's important as Peter sir was suggesting that majority of our industry is made up of SMEs. That's true. SMEs require finance. You cannot finance them easily. But if you create, this is particularly banks or something, and if you create a kind of a supply chain program, where it also reaches out to the supply lines, tier one, tier two, tier three, even a deep tier as well. Then the entire VAG program will benefit out of it, and the country is benefited out of it. So the achieving the SDG goals would be quite easier with that.
I wanted to talk about ESG minus E, but he has actually taken some part of whatever I was thinking already. So I'm going to concentrate more on governance, and from the policy point of view, I think governance is something wherein there is always a lot of scope to improve it. I'm not saying that the present government is good enough, but G for governance and G for grassroots. So we need to go to the grassroots level. We go to the SDGs also. It is not only talking about companies or corporate. So let us take it out from the corporate setup. Let us take it out completely from the finance side of it. Let us take it out from reporting side of it. But let's go to the grassroots, where we are going to talk about clean water, sanitation. We are going to talk about electricity. We are going to talk about clean energy. We are talking about sustainability. We are talking about education. So these are some of the goals which are there in any ESG program, and over the years, since the time we have got independence and now, governance has increased or gone as much deep rooted, but there is always scope to go deeper into the hinterland and go to the grassroots and take these initiatives there. So I think from the policy point of view, it would be a great initiative to continue the emphasis on the governance side and at the grassroots level. As a society, originally we were very having eco-friendly practices. If you see about whether we use cotton clothes or we use jute products or so many things, steel glasses, rather glasses and limited use of plastic, it has already increased in last couple of years. So lot of incentivization, lot of education is being given on these aspects by the governments and by various agencies. But rather than a corporate entity or a banking institution stepping in and financing at a better rate, while it is a good thing, but it is not a holistic thing. They are trying to do their part. The best they can do, and they are able to finance. But and what was mentioned by eminent panelists is there is 1,000 companies, 2,000 companies do not represent what India is. India is a lot, or maybe more than 50% is unorganized sector. So how do you get unorganized sector to follow something which is professed by UN or SDG or by ESG norms? He's not interested. He's only interested in making that quick money and going home after closing his profit. So how can you sensitize that person who's on the ground and who's in the unorganized sector, who doesn't report, who doesn't pay income tax, but yes, he's making money out of the economy, but he's not reporting income tax. Forget about reporting about ESG. So he's not incentivized towards that. How do we get those people who are building India at the grassroots level and at the middle level and at the SMB level, MSME level? These doors and these incentives could only be given to SMEs or at the most MSMEs, but after that what? So how do you get ESG to come to the grassroots level? That is why it comes slowly. It will not come by a policy change, or it will not come by a budget speech. It will come in due course, but I think the collective effort is there, and the very fact that we are having a panel discussion on such an important subject with eminent panelists indicates that there is seriousness about the fact, but that seriousness is not only in academic circles or financial institutions or in the government or the corporate, but it should seep down to the grassroots level. That is what I would like and hope to see in the coming days.
Well, that's a very prominent point that, speaking to the grassroots level, in fact, ESG has become a buzzword now, and I think very rightly pointed out that SMG have been ignored. But have we ever pondered upon the legit papad that we've been consuming day in and day out? I mean, over 70 years, it started from 70 to 80 rupees, which was just donated by a social worker. That was, I think, the brainchild where the seed for social, upliftment of the woman was sown. And they never call the women workers as workers or employees, they always call them or give them collective ownership. So I think these are the kind of institutions which India already has, which has been working a lot, which has been doing a lot of the social front. I just imagine how many households, how many children are starting now only because of one enterprise working in our country, Ledger Papad, and today even these products are exported in many of the overseas countries because we have Indians all over the world, right? Another startup that I would like to mention here is also Cool. Okay, this was started by an automation scientist, Mr. Ankit Agarwal, and he started collecting the temple flowers. And these temple flowers are being converted into powder into the incense sticks, and now many products are being made out of it. Again, there are women workers here, and their families are being supported out of this employment. Also, the packaging that they are using is eco-friendly, and they plan to introduce vegan leather and many products like even mosquito repellents, and even during Holi, the colors will be made from these temple flowers. So I think something like this will be an all-around, like a complete circle of ESG, where you are doing something to the environment, you have the social aspect already integrated in your organization day in and day out. And then obviously governments will come with the quarterly and the annual reportings that they have, with the GST reportings which are there. So I think there are startups, there are companies which are doing their work, but we really need to see that how the government can also incentivize them, that whatever financial challenges they are facing, they will be able to kind of survive and sail through them. And it should not happen that because of those challenges, they end up shutting their business down. Because then again, the economic repercussions of that are very, very high. So I think our last segment will be the ESG ratings and the ESG scores. There's a lot of debate on how to kind of measure these ratings. There's a lot of debate which is happening on the measurement and the scoring. There are a lot of companies which are also working and making apps to get this ESG score in place. But then I would like, our panelists to give their nuggets of wisdom as to how this can be streamlined, because it's very diverse and different industries will have different parameters, not easy to bring them all on the same page. So throw light on this aspect of ESG ratings.
Very interesting. Now, SEBI said 250 companies starting from this year should be rated by a third party. So, like CARE or CRISIL, these are the rating agencies which have applied for license, they got it, and there are a couple of foreign institutions. But when you have so many standards across the world, worldwide, this is the biggest problem. What standard to report? And every standard is different. And now finally they are trying to come with this NFRS and all of that is coming. But each industry, of course, I was part of this GRI standards. They have introduced for each industry, textiles, leather, automotive. But it does not take into account geography specific issues. Right? So I would always prefer rating agencies will be looking at where we operate. Now you can't have Satara in Maharashtra compared with a place somewhere else, and you have to see what temperature that highs and lows and all of that. Rating agencies are going to suffer from lack of credible data. This is going to be the biggest problem. Even in our BRSR, 2 years, 1,000 companies have disclosed. And if I go to 10 companies, I don't want to name them, they have been fooling around. Big companies with big credible boards, they say something in the BRSR and they have a D-link in the data. Because they say, oh, our auditor did it, or somebody did it, big force, whatever it is. At the end of the day, somebody made money, and your 9 principles, NRG's principles, signed by the board of directors are not validated with the credibility. Now you have a third party coming in. What is going to happen? The stock market, now look at the retail investors or the institutional investors. They are going to look at it. Somebody pointed, so far, nobody had the guts to go through these 1,000 companies the last 2 years where they made these mistakes. We have a data platform, tech platform. When I approach the company for business, I tell them, you reported like this in this paragraph, your data is not supporting in this paragraph. So why? Then suddenly the company secretary or the CFO will call me, Sridhar, please, let's have a discussion. So call the bluff out. Now this process will take long time. It will be 10 years by the time we will have a reliable data on the table. Until then, the credit rating agencies, we have seen how debt was rated by the same CARE, CRISIL, all of these people in 2011, 2012, they rated A, within 3 months it becomes D. And RBA whacked the whip and SEBI, right? And I have done $3 billion of debt restructuring in India, and I know how A-rated company, when they declare the balance sheet, they will come to me, Sridhar, they are becoming NPA. And the banker will say, Sridhar, why should I trust you? I have an audit report which says everything is perfect and inventory is there. But I said, don't ask me. Go to your branch, ask your branch manager, he knows what is going to happen in the company. Right? This is how rating agencies also will have problems. They will be disqualified for rating certain companies. Like Adani, when the Hindenburg issue came up, he was rated, I think, double B or something in the US for ESG. And suddenly the rating agency said, we are withdrawing. What nonsense. But what did you rate? Not because of Hindenburg you are rating. Report based on the fundamentals of the company. So this is where boards of rating companies will have to be taken into task. Okay, that's my. That's. No, we know the story, but we are talking about ESG.
No, I just wanted to compliment your perspective on this. What are we rating against? That is a very important thing because there are so many criteria now for which you need to be compliant about. A company which is doing business in China requires to rate for something else in Europe or something else in India. So you cannot keep on doing taking ratings from everyone and trying to get compliance from everything. So I think in a long run at the global level, what is required is to have common parameters so that you could rate your efficiency or your ESG reporting onto that parameter. And it should not be different norms for different geographies, as Mr. Sridhar was bringing out. And the second thing is transparency. Even in your own credit cards, credit rating score, your own personal credit rating score, you do not know how does that thing work, because there in the newspaper some weeks back that how does CRISIL rate your credit standing? It is not known. And it is not transparent to anybody. There is no algorithm which is available to anybody that I'll do this and my credit rating will increase or it will decrease. So the transparency of that rating agency is very important. And also it is very important as to who, what are you rating against? Because you cannot be always engaged in getting yourself rated against some norm or the other, because it prevents you from the ease of doing business.
Subject of this, the reporting and the credibility, it founded with 2 big ones. Example, or it will be curved actually because of advancement of technology. This is particularly for reporting pollution. Like we are talking about reducing carbon footprint against reducing various factors of pollution. And then, so there is a agency one which monitors methane release. Methane is a big problem universally, and there is now an agency globally. There is a satellite which is, I think, called methane stats or something like that. If we or our agencies subscribe, I think India is probably subscribed for that. So among all the large polluting companies within India or within many other countries, they cannot hide. One is ESG reporting and then rating and this, but this methane stat will definitely detect, like let's say large steel mills, large coal-based power plants, and large cement plants. Like you all will remember about 15 years back, in China, at once China government had to close down cement plants numbering 2,000 plus. See the staggering number. Closed because of bad, this. So they had to close. There was no argument, and the rest are still working. So coming back to what kind of thing, the reporting and standard and rating, technology is advancing. And like this methane sat, it will, government will make use of that, like this, SEBI is mandating this may be in some time, they will also ask, you please show your compliance or report drawn from the methane sat. You simply cannot sign or publish something like that. So this is again a great advancement coming.
It all boils down to the data at the end of the day, because if you want to report, well, you have to collect data well and analyze it well and eventually present it well. For that, you have to take the sensor on the ground, put it and then collect the data. That is what it is.
But the real problem, see, for example, sexual harassment. Out of 1,000 companies, I will tell you only 2 companies reported. What are you fooling around? Every company has had issues, right? Only 2 companies or 3 companies reported sexual harassment. Accidents. And you have minor accidents, medium accidents, there are grades of accidents. People don't report. Now, when you compare this data, what is going to happen? The ESG rating companies, first, they do not have knowledge base. I know a couple of people who applied for SEBI license. Their team was only 2 people who were also doing some other job, and they got that all because they had to show 1 crore net worth to get the credit rating certificate. Now, these 2 girls who are there, I'm sorry, whether girl or boy, it doesn't matter. I said, what is, sir, I have studied, I have got a certificate. I said, have you been in any industry? Have you worked in any industry? How does this calculate? I gave her, this is the number of units consumed. Can you give me how much CO2 emission? She doesn't know. She immediately Googles. And what are you going to rate and who is going to be rated? This is a serious issue, right? And the knowledge is not yet developed. The skill development has not taken place for people. How do we measure? Where do we measure? Heat. Now, if you go to Pune, many industrial areas, they have to disclose outside what is the AQI every day. Right? Now, we have to bring it to every societies here, housing societies. Then only we will know how we do that. Right? We will have serious issues in the credit rating, but it will improve. What is the problem today is people report sustainability, PRS report or sustainability, whatever you call it. Not many people are reading through it. We used to have activist investors, which are now coming, right? Now, activist investor, now CSR is another big issue, right? And in this CSR, we have, for your information, Mr. Ma, we have 3.8 million NGOs in India and 1.8 million NGOs in the United States. So I want to see how this 3.8 million NGOs can participate in this exercise. No, they are not getting included. There are certain things which are not happening. Yes,
sir. Similar to the ESG is becoming a very big name and everybody is talking about it. There's another area, that's what fintechs. Just talking about, everywhere, everybody's talking about fintech and regulations around it and things around it. So then I was just going to one particular paper by very esteemed scholar. The paper was basically about fintechs, innovation versus regulation. And that the author is basically, argued that whenever we are forcing some regulations, people will tend to rebel around it. And he gave different examples around this. But a very important, a very specific point he made there, that he basically divided the entire regulation into 2 parts. Forced regulation and principle-based regulation. May I like the word principle-based regulation because it is more of a framework that you are creating. You are creating awareness among the entire fintech community, and tell them that basically these are the framework under which you have to innovate yourself. You create things. You don't go out. If you go out, then 1 to 3 things can happen. 4, 5, 6 wrong things can happen. So you don't go out. There's a framework. Now you created a principle into their mind, you educated them, and then you created this. When you look at similar principle into ESG, and put the similar principle into ESG, what is happening around the world is that a lot of companies, a lot of countries around the world who are forcing their companies to, achieve certain targets and remain to that particular standard only. Countries like USA. Now, if you look at their manufacturing capability today is almost nil. Okay. Still, they are saying that we will not adhere to the Paris Agreement or the agreement that the world is basically working on. So every year we are having COP21, 22, 23, so 27 it just happened. They are not ready to adhere to that particular thing. Why is happening so? And why India is very different on that particular front? The reason is simple. EU has come up with a very regulated, specific taxonomy, which is, asking all their companies to adhere to certain rules. In India, what we are doing from last 5-7 years, Prime Minister said that by 2030 we want to achieve 400 gigawatts target. Now, you cannot achieve 400 gigawatts target overnight. So he said, okay, we have some years to achieve that. 10 years we'll achieve that much. Who will finance this? Okay. Financing banks are there, but do we have that appetite? We don't have. So every year, if you look at slowly and steadily, the government, the regulated agencies, regulators are bringing a different change in their how to want to go about. Now, for the company like SEBI has suggested to do the reporting closures, they are now asking companies to go for rating and everything. What government is doing on that front? They are coming up with different structures to allow environment-based companies, green companies, or even electricity generating companies to avail funds into different categories, into different structures. One of the very recent things, like companies like PFC or Finance Corporation, even though they are Indian companies, they are asked to set up their office in IFSC. IFSC region, I will tell you, there is no INR. So Indian rupee doesn't count. All business, everything happens in foreign currency. The dollar is the main currency, then you can also have another foreign currencies around which their business. Why government is forcing their own companies to set up their office there? Very simple thing. So that they can raise funds from the international market at a cheaper. That particular raising fund, they can provide this funding to the companies here in India so that they utilize that fund and they create something new. Similarly, they are, so IFSC is basically opening up themselves in those areas where the financing is very much required. Now, this another area where government is currently focusing on this. If you look at trade finance, the one area that I told you about, logistics, where everybody is documenting themselves and doing this. For the trade finance, even today, across the world, even the brightest of the countries, the technology head of the country, though the regulations are very open, still they require documents, physical documents to be submitted to the bank in order to either receive the funds, I mean the financing, or in order to release their goods. In 2022, government has, with ULIP only, they created one smaller program for SLD, Secure Logistics Document Exchange. It's a blockchain-based platform where all the constituents of a trade will come into that particular platform, like a seller bank, a buyer, even a transporter, everybody will come there. And the document in digital format is exchanged on the particular platform. One, it reduces time. So you can actually transfer all the documents by bank franking, bank declaration, all things you can do it then and there with the documents, with the data available from government portal. And in one day itself, you can transfer all your documents. We did one particular pilot program with that. So one of the company actually listed now, they send their product from Chennai airport to Jordan. It usually takes 7 days to reach there. It's a simple 7 day process. On let's say Friday, Wednesday, the ship is leaving Chennai. Next day, it will reach there. Next Tuesday, Thursday, reach there. Now, consider the document. If you want to send this physical document, usually it takes 10 to 12 days to reach. So for 5 days, any company who is basically importing goods from India will have to pay demurrage charges. It's a usual practice every year. So we did that one particular program where everybody came on that particular platform. We completed document transfer in 1 day. And for the very first time, that company had not paid any demurrage. This is cost reduction on two fronts. One, no demurrage charge. Second, no document exchange. Physical document efficiency. So there is no regulation around it. But principally, we understood that this is actually helping us to reduce the cost, reduce the timelines, and improve the efficiency. I don't know. So similarly, I mean, I still believe that it's important that we create regulations, but regulation should not be forced on. Sometimes it's important that we create certain awareness, and in principle, there's regulation so that helps us to adapt to it. Like any innovation can come into that particular area, and we would be in a better position to achieve our targets.
Any conclusion from your other panel? So I think that's a very interesting point, principle-based regulations. And I believe this will also attract a very good workforce, because I think regulations is one frontier which really is a very scary frontier. And when there are scores and ratings which are involved, which are going to attract your future investors, that will definitely create nightmares for our Gen Z, Gen Alpha, and now the Gen Beta, which is already coming in. So definitely sustainability is a way of life, which I think a lot of Indian companies are already like embedding it into their processes, integrating. But it's not a one-day affair or one-day task. It's going to take a very, it's going to take a lot of time, because for India having a very diverse landscape. But I think from all our panelists, what we heard today is that there is a lot of work which is happening, which we are not even aware about. Like right from the milk analyzer to ending on a note where in one day the documentation can be done from India to Jordan. So I think this is really remarkable, and there's a lot that can be done which is on the tip of the iceberg. But the most important thing is to take home the practices that we can also imbibe in a way that we lead a sustainable life. And secondly, we do see as part of companies and organizations how we can bring that on the table, where our organizations, our entities, our students who will then become the future workforce of this country also have sustainability. So if they carry that, I think that will be a skill which will make them job ready and future ready. And be agile. I think agility is one of the things with resilience. Be agile and in adopting what their organizations are going to put forth. So with this, I would like to end this panel discussion. Again, I would really like to thank our principal ma'am and the entire team at Vidyalankar Institute for organizing this, and all our panel members for engaging in such an insightful discussion. Thank you so much.
Thank you for being wonderful boss as a moderator. Well done.
Discussion, which I'm sure have many participants and lot to think about. I thank the moderator, Dr. Hatri, and the panelists, Mr. Sridhar Ramachandran, Mr. Vikas Golbade, Mr. Manan Bhatt, and Commander Varun Gupta for their participation in the panel discussion. As we conclude with the inauguration ceremony, I'd like to share a quote I read yesterday. Knowledge is like money. To be of value, it must circulate, and in circulating, it can increase in quantity and hopefully in value. On that note, I'd like to thank all experts and academicians for being a part of this academic conference. I'm sure the technical session that will commence post-lunch will be a delightful exchange of ideas and knowledge. I would like to extend my heartfelt thanks to our keynote speaker, our chief guest, moderator, and panelists for igniting fast knowledge in VCMT 2025. I thank the leaders of the Institute, Principal Dr. Vinny Gilkar, Vice Principal Mr. Asif Ram Ravla, and Mr. Vijay Gave for his support. Additionally, I thank the organizers, the Research and Development Committee, Dr. Neela Nair, Dr. Swapnika Nanda, Dr. Swapna Kadam, Dr. Jwala Saab, and Dr. Sandeep Khanekar for making this conference a possibility. I now request everyone to proceed to be lounge for lunch. Technical sessions. Okay. We have a group photo as well. Technical sessions will be in the white block post lunch. Okay, let's take it. Technical sessions.